and timed as to how many so-called orgasms they had. It's hideous. And this is Kinsey, and he's supposed to be, some sort of expert. He was the one that basically kind of launched along with Hugh Hefner, I think, launched the sexual revolution. And his name, and he was a horrible, horrible person. And his name's still on that Kinsey Institute at Indiana University.
You know what? We did get something. Just if you all could, if those who are on YouTube, if we're coming through loud and clear, can you please give us a thumbs up as we continue to play the videos of us actually going to the school boards and speaking.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so that we're actually doing two things at once. We're having the meetings here at the church, and trying to get as many people here as possible to come and hear what's actually going. They watch part of the movie. We show part of the movie, and then we show them that this is happening here in our schools, in our Illinois schools, and in our specifically our local school, because that's what we know the most about, because that's what we've done the most research into, because they are our local schools. But it's throughout Illinois. We've had some terrible, terrible laws passed in the past few years that people really don't understand the impact of. So we're doing that with those meetings, and we are going and speaking at school boards during the public comments section.
Yep.
And how's it going there, Abby?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask the school boards, but at the grade school board, I read comments. I read an excerpt from a book in the library. It was absolutely obscene. It was in the meeting happens to be in the same school as that library.
Oh, that was good.
I think they were shocked. They removed that book right away, although it's under review. So in my mind, I've seen enough of this to know that does not mean the book is not coming back.
Right.
So you got to read the fine print with our school boards, unfortunately.
I have a friend, this was a good 10 years ago in the same school district when her son was in 8th grade, and he was handed just a terrible book to read. And she went, talked to the teacher, then went to the administration, and she just went up the chain like you're supposed to. And she spent so much time on this, and, they pretended to care what she thought. And, they told her, oh yeah, we're going to, make sure this doesn't happen again. And we're going to put in these safeguards or whatever. And that was at least 10 years ago. And what happened with all that? Because it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And last night we had a whole display of books in a K through 6 school, not even a junior high, but one of our K through 6 schools, all these books in the library, and what they're about. And it's just horrible. It's really horrible.
And let me just say that typically speaking, like K through 5th grade, it's not so much explicit obscene material as it is, gay characters, trans characters. There was a book, I can't remember the name of it, where the main character was a drag queen, a prince who was a drag queen. So, at the younger levels, what they're trying to do is normalize sexual immorality and abnormal sexuality to little kids.
And these are, the way these books are presented, they're for young kids. And then some of these graphic novels, they don't they have very few words in them. So they're just dumbing down the kids too. They're not teaching them how to read, because there are so few words that they even have to read on each page.
You think they're trying to teach kids how to read still?
Well, no. I used to think that was a goal. But we know, looking at the scores, that it's not a goal.
Yeah.
That was another thing we brought up. I don't know if it's like this in a lot of states, but in Illinois, our academics are abysmal, and they have been falling steadily. Vicki did some research a couple weeks ago, going all the way back to 2015, and they have just fallen to the point where in our local schools, I think it's 64% are below grade level in English, and 62%, I might have those backwards, but it's more than 60% in math, below grade level.
Right.
That's failure. In my mind, that's failure. If you're a school, you are failing.
Right. And they waste so much time on stuff that is not what these kids need to be. They need to learn the basics: English, math, science.
I think there's no debating that the school's priorities right now and what they're setting out to do is not to educate kids, not to give them a basic education, because by all accounts they're failing if that is their goal. But
I think the goals have changed. The goals have changed. And they just didn't let the parents know.
And they didn't let the parents know, society know. Thank you, Laura, for the thumbs up. We had some technical difficulties with our other stream. Seem like that is solved. So we encourage other churches. We encourage other churches to please get involved. If now you can't find a reason to speak up what's going on in our culture, then I think you need to check your pulse as a ministry. Your country is being stolen from you. The country that's being replaced is going to be very anti-truth and thus anti-God. And this ends up, from a Christian perspective, this is news from a Christian perspective, this ends up with the wholesale slaughter of the church. And I'm not speaking figuratively either. Read Revelation. So,
look at history.
Look at history. Absolutely, Abby. Look at history. That is how it ends up. The Marxist ideology tells you flat out they are anti-God. Can't have God. Cannot have God as a competing ideology. So, all right, with that said, we're going to switch to our first topic in the round table. First topic is there's something that happened on a world stage, could be very, very devastating, very, very problematic for the world. When I see this, one thing comes to mind out of scriptures: wars and rumors of wars. Look what happened to a pipeline over across the world.
So the question is, how did this happen? And it turns out it was not an accident. At the very same time that leaks in these pipelines were detected, Swedish officials recorded 2 powerful undersea explosions, each one of which was equivalent to hundreds of pounds of TNT. Nothing in nature can account for that. Almost immediately, the pipelines began leaking in 3 separate places. So there's only one explanation for what happened. This was an act of industrial terrorism. That was very obvious to the Prime Minister of Poland, and he wasted no time in saying so. Watch.
Today, we are also dealing with an act of sabotage. We do not know the details of what happened yet, but we can clearly see that it is an act of sabotage, an act that probably marks the next stage in the escalation of the situation we are dealing with in Ukraine.
We can clearly see, he said, this was an act of sabotage, an act of terrorism. Well, yes, we can see that. So the question is who did it, and of course the prime suspect is obvious. It would be the same man who caused domestic inflation here in the U.S. and stole the 2016 election from Hillary Clinton. That'd be
So here's what happened. The pipeline going from Russia to Germany. We call it Stream, what is it, some Gulf?
Nord Stream.
Nord Stream 1 and 2. I don't know if it's in my second clip, but Nord Stream 1 was not pumping because of Germany was pretty upset with Russia because they invaded. Nord Stream 2 was finished, but they had never turned it on.
I did not know that.
Because of the war that quote-unquote Putin started in Ukraine. While they were not running, they were both pressurized. And so, if you look at it, then it's news around the world from a Christian perspective. We'll give you the news, and then we'll look at it from a Christian angle. They they being Europe was already afraid of the winter that was coming. The winter that was coming, they said, would end. One person actually estimated 70% of all businesses in Europe would fail in the winter because of a failure to heat. Tucker's probably the only guy I look at consistently now, that the firewood all throughout Europe is gone. Coal is at a premium, gone. And if you don't have Nord Stream 1 pumping, they're terrified. How are they going to heat homes in Europe? Not Germany, not France, Europe.
Right.
Europe. And so this pipeline is a big deal. Some people say, well, if you're an environmentalist, this is releasing all the gases in the air. I don't think we can hurt the environment. But that's one angle to it. The second angle is, how is Europe going to survive this winter? Right. And it seems like Putin was waiting on it to get cold so he can have leverage against Europe so he can get what he wanted out of Ukraine. Well, that pipe is gone now.
Well, they had shut it down anyway, and that's why people were anticipating. I mean, Europe said we're not taking any Russian gas, right?
They said that in the summer, Abby.
Right.
They didn't say that in the winter yet.
Oh.
So Mr. Putin was saying, let's see if y'all keep that stance come October.
I see. Okay.
Let's see if you're still playing hardball in November.
Right.
Let's see if you're still resolute in December and January. Well, now with this pipeline gone and Putin hurting for money.
Right. Now they don't even have the option.
They don't. The option is taken off the table. And Mr. Carlson has a very, 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 I would say, thoughtful theory on who blew up this pipeline.
The Washington Post got right to it. Putin, they declared, is now weaponizing the Nord Stream pipelines. According to the Canadian ambassador to the UN, Vladimir Putin has decided to use, quote, pollution as an act of war. Progressive Twitter strongly endorsed this conclusion. Putin did it. And that makes sense until you thought about it for just a moment. Vladimir Putin may be evil. They tell us that he is evil. But is he stupid? Probably isn't stupid. And yet, and here's the strange part, if you are Vladimir Putin, you would have to be a suicidal moron to blow up your own energy pipelines. That's the one thing you would never do. Natural gas pipelines are the main source of your power and your wealth, and most critically, your leverage over other countries. Europe needs your energy, now more than ever with winter approaching. If you can't deliver that energy, then countries like Germany have no need to pay attention to what you want. You're in the middle of a war, an all-hands-on-deck war, so you need all the leverage you can get. Under these circumstances, there is no chance you would blow up Nord Stream 1 or 2. Not now, obviously. In fact, it's so obvious that even our famously dim Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, seemed to acknowledge it. Sabotaging Nord Stream, he said today, is, quote, clearly in no one's interest. Right, but really only half right. It is true that blowing up Nord Stream does not help Vladimir Putin. He would not do that. Why would he? But that doesn't mean that other countries wouldn't consider doing it. They would consider it, and we know they have considered it because at least one of them has said so in public. In early February, less than 3 weeks before the war in Ukraine began, Joe Biden suggested on camera that he might take out these pipelines. Watch.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
I promise you, we will be able to do it. Wait a minute, Mr. President. How can you say you're going to end Nord Stream 2 since it's from Russia to Germany? The project is in German soil. It's under the German government. Mr. President, how can you say there's going to no longer be a Nord Stream 2? I promise you, we will be able to do it. Abby, you're laughing all throughout the video.
Sorry. Well, the first part was it the news, the mainstream media that was reporting that Putin is trying to create a climate crisis.
Of course,
and that's what this was all about.
Yes,
He's
weaponized. He's weaponized
the climate.
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah. I would love to see what the percentage of people who actually believe that is. I bet it'd be higher than I think.
Probably. Yeah.
That is so stupid. I can't even. That's why I was laughing.
So you don't buy it?
That is dumber than dumb.
So that means you don't buy it?
No.
You don't buy that Putin is weaponized?
Goodness.
He's weaponizing. Okay.
Yeah, Putin did it. Yeah, and he did it in order to
Abby,
screw up the climate.
Before. It worked since 2016. Donald Trump was illegitimate because Putin did it.
You're right. I know. That's why I think there probably would be a pretty decent percentage of people who would repeat that.
And I'm willing to bet you 2-1 within a week, some sort of way, Trump is responsible also.
I don't think it'll take a week.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Some sort of way, Trump is responsible also.
But my first thought when I heard this, you told me about this yesterday, was that's an act of war.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
That's escalation.
Absolutely. If that pipeline, not only with Russia, there's a reason why Tucker played the president of Poland. If Europe freezes this winter, the possibility is, if they can prove it's been the United States of America, and people die because of the cold, the European economies crash because of the lack of heat. Now it's going to be Putin in Europe against the United States. He would have effectively isolated us in the world. Because I don't care how much you say we're allies. You're going to destroy my economy and freeze my people. We're no longer friends. And so that's the danger of it. And if that is the case, and if that is actually possible, I mean, think about this. Some people believe that the CCP owns the White House.
Right.
What better way to destroy America than to separate them from Europe? What better way? If you want it, have we not been asking this question for 2 years now? If you wanted to destroy America, what would you be doing differently than what Biden's been doing?
Oh no! Right. Clearly, that's the goal.
Yeah. If you want to destroy America, what would you be doing differently? Well, separating the U.S. from Europe. This is terrible. Right? This is absolutely terrible.
And I couldn't help but think, wars and rumors of wars.
Yep.
That was one of the first things that
wars
came to my mind.
Wars and rumors of wars. That's exactly why. Wars and rumors of wars. This will go answered. This cannot go unanswered. When people are dying, if in fact it's true what they're saying, coal is scarce, wood is gone, 70% of businesses go because you can't heat it. If that's true, this world has changed. On to bigger and better news. Anything else? The pipeline? I mean, it's just, on to bigger and better news. There's a hurricane. I am shocked. I am absolutely shocked now how everybody else in the United States of America care about hurricanes. I grew up with them, 2 or 3 a year. It wasn't front page news. We just dealt with it. Flooded out. You know how many times our houses, the relatives in my house, the houses of my relatives in New Orleans, we had to redo drywall and deal with hurricanes and flooding. It happened all the time.
Yeah.
Now it's a big deal. Ever since Katrina now, it's a big deal because they found a way to politicize hurricanes.
The weather.
Yep.
So is there any truth in and I've heard people say that the hurricanes now are much more violent than they used to be. Is that true?
Katrina was special.
Well, and if the levee hadn't have broke,
Yes.
Katrina wouldn't have been as special.
She was still special. She was a 5 had never come that close to New Orleans.
Right.
And she wiggled at the last moment, and we got hit on she passes on the east instead of the west. She wiggled at the last moment. I don't know, because the hurricane turns like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wiggled, and we got this part instead of this part. If we had done that, it would have been 5 times worse. So she wiggled at the last moment. So a 5 had never come that close to New Orleans. I mean, I take that back. A 5 hadn't come that close in a generation. They still talk about Betsy, my mother, and them, how they lived in the attic of the house for a week until the waters went down.
Yeah.
I heard about Betsy. Betsy was before my time.
You didn't evacuate, though. I mean, you and your family.
That was Katrina. I'm saying Betsy.
Right, but with Katrina, and you knew it was a 5.
Well,
right?
I don't want to get into all of that.
Okay.
My vote was to leave. I was outvoted.
I see.
We don't want to relive internal family disputes on the air. So yes, she was special. Katrina was special. But ever since Katrina, now remember, Bush was the doofus because he didn't do anything.
That's right.
Even though he called the mayor and begged him.
Yeah.
Man naked, I remember.
Oh,
but now
man.
they politicized
He was
hurricanes.
special, too.
Oh, he was special. He was special. But ever since then, hurricanes have been politicized. Mm-hmm. And our commander-in-chief has found yet another way to use the hurricane. But I think he's going a little too far this time. Look at our president.
Let me be clear. If you're in a state where hurricanes often strike, like Florida or the Gulf Coast or into Texas, a vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now. Everything is more complicated if you're not vaccinated and a hurricane or natural disaster hits.
So we just played his words. We've said nothing negative or positive, so we don't get kicked off. We just simply played. The president's words.
Oh my goodness!
It is his opinion. You don't need water. You don't need boats.
A generator.
You don't need generators, Vicki.
You need to go evacuate.
You don't need to evacuate, Vicki. The best thing.
Get your booster.
The best thing you
That's
can do.
going to save you.
And all we're doing is saying what he said. The best thing you can do to prepare for a hurricane is to get vaccinated.
That's amazing.
He is so wise.
He could
He's
say
so
that with
wise.
a straight face.
It's amazing how Biden is so wise to tell us that.
You can get
Just
vaccinated.
wise.
I didn't know you could get vaccinated against a hurricane.
Yes.
I didn't.
Yes. He just said it. And so I'm just amazed.
That mRNA vaccine is amazing.
It's amazing. I'm shocked at how wise the president is. All this time, he had the answer.
He did.
Wow.
I wonder if he's let FEMA know the answer.
Yeah, FEMA now has a new directive to combat hurricanes.
But
and if you missed it the first time, here it is a second time. It's only 21 seconds, but the wisdom.
Let me be clear. If you're in a state where hurricanes often strike, like Florida or the Gulf Coast or into Texas, a vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now. Everything is more complicated if you're not vaccinated and a hurricane or natural disaster hits.
So, again, the president has broken new ground. He's given us the answer that has eluded us for many, many years. He has given us the answers
Wow.
to hurricanes.
Yeah, and like I said, I just got a text from my sister out in Colorado. She just tested positive for COVID, even though she's gotten all the boosters and everything. Had her last booster a couple months ago. I know.
That can't be right.
It
Because I'm
can't
just
be
gonna
right.
Tell you what the president said.
Yep, it stops.
It is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Oh, right. I forgot.
So obviously, something's wrong there. You're
Yeah.
reporting, Vicki.
Yeah.
Obviously, right?
Yeah. Wow.
But no, in all seriousness, our prayers do go out to Florida because this is a
absolutely.
really bad one. This is almost a Category 5. It's like right below Category 5.
Oh, I thought it was like a 3. It was a 5 by the
No,
time it hit.
it's almost a 5. It's
almost
Wow.
5.
It's almost 5. It's
So I
a
know-
4, but it's close to being a 5.
So I know the storm surge is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they haven't had one in that area for many
Because it
years.
hit on the Gulf side,
Yep. Yep.
the Tampa area.
Yeah, it actually is 100 miles south of Tampa. They thought it was going to hit the Tampa area, and then it went south yesterday. So now it hit like Sanibel, Captiva, that area.
Sanibel, that's where we were.
Sanibel got basically a direct hit.
We were in Sanibel this summer.
And we're supposed to go there for Christmas.
I don't think so. No.
I don't think so anymore.
Yeah, I think you're done. Yeah, I think you're done.
Wow.
Yeah, but the hurricanes are a terrible thing. Terrible thing. All right. On to some more news. The FBI, just when you thought it could not get any more bad or worse publicity, once again they've shocked me, and I was wrong.
I know I don't get shocked very often either.
This
Anymore.
is
Shocking.
Yeah, boy, you say I've seen it all now. There's nothing more can shock me. And then this happens.
FBI agents arrested a pro-life activist last Friday for allegedly physically assaulting a man outside a Planned Parenthood last year. So 48-year-old Mark Houck, who co-founded the King's Men, a Catholic organization that mentors young men, was taken into custody and charged for allegedly violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which prohibits the use of force and intimidation against anyone who provides reproductive health care.
Houck has a history of protesting outside abortion clinics. According to pro-life outlet LifeSite News, he drove 2 hours to 2 different abortion centers in Philadelphia every Wednesday to speak for hours on end. So it seems like the issue in this case is a dispute about who apparently pushed whom first. He's been accused of twice assaulting a man in his 70s who is the one that's brought suit, and for violating laws that prevent you from interfering in people's right to going and access abortion clinics without being harassed. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so look, we don't know exactly what happened there. His wife said that their 12-year-old son was with Houck, and they were, preaching, engaged in anti-abortion political activity outside the clinic, and that a man came up to them and got very close to the son. The literal words was entered the son's personal space and started hurling insults and vulgarities at him, and Houck shoved this man away from his son. This man tried to sue Houck unsuccessfully, is I think kind of an activist from the other direction. The charge that Houck violated this Access to Reproductive Clinics Act, that charge was thrown out over the summer, but now the Justice Department has for some reason gotten involved. So basically, this seems like it was a kind of obscure local matter. I don't know what the FBI has to do with it or why they raided his home. It's dangerous when the FBI raids your home. I know you agree.
Certainly.
They showed up, tons of agents, guns drawn, and he said, they showed up at the door and he tried to say, I will come out with my hands up. Please don't come into my house he has 1 million kids, with all your guns. They did anyway. They did, that whole thing. I think it's pretty outrageous. It doesn't look to me like there's any underlying basis for this kind of behavior.
He said, I will come out. He has 7 kids. He doesn't have
he doesn't have 1 million.
Yeah, I don't know why he said that. It's sort of like derogatory, but maybe we're reading it wrong. He has 7 kids.
Yeah, I didn't take it that way from that guy, that it was derogatory.
Well,
I just
did.
thought it was kind of funny.
Well,
Kids,
when
got like
he
a
said
million kids.
anti-abortion political activity, I took it a little derogatory.
Yeah, well, no, he's clearly on the, if you look at the whole clip, he's clearly on the side of the pro-lifer guy.
Right.
Oh, okay.
But for him to
All
say,
right, I read it wrong.
Yeah, for him to still say 1 million kids, I don't know why you say that. 7 is not 1 million. Like, that's a lot of kids. I mean, it is a lot of kids. But anyway, he says, I'm going to come outside. Hands up, just don't come near with my kids. No, that was the point.
Right.
Terrorize your
That's
wife
right.
and your kids. So he comes
And
out
send a message.
and to send a message. He, again, the man is a pro-lifer. He leads a pro-life organization. With 20 agents with guns drawn, you swear he was Bonnie and Clyde.
Right.
You swear there was a manhunt for this guy because he had killed 90 people.
There is zero reason for the
There
FBI
is
to be involved in this.
zero reason.
Someone got
do
into
that if they're honorable. But there is a reason, Vicki. I keep telling people there is a reason for them to do this. It is
Of
to
course.
terrorize.
Oh, for sure. There's no
citizenry.
good reason. There's no
That's right.
ethical reason.
There's no ethical reason to do this. They're modern day brown shirts.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI at this point,
Yes.
every time you say, and you know what? We got to stop saying this. Well, it's not the men and women in the rank and file FBI. It's just the leaders.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Is
a
it all
lot
of them? Probably not.
Well,
but
I just heard an interview in which there was an FBI guy who said, I think he's the one that got fired, the whistleblower that got fired. He said, they're asking me to do XYZ. I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to Mar-a-Lago. I'm not going to people's
Right.
houses. I'm not doing it. And I think he got fired. And he said, now there are more and more FBI agents that are coming out saying, we're not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They're doing this. We take an oath. We cannot follow unethical orders like that.
Uh-huh.
Yet there were 20 that did it.
Right.
20. There were 20.
And I heard a story today about another woman that they tried to kill in a hospital, who had COVID. She was unvaccinated. They put her on DNR.
Oh my gosh.
And that's not all they did. The story was absolutely horrendous. And I'm thinking just about the number of people in that hospital that have to be complicit in the way she was treated. I couldn't.
Oh, yeah, I've
the
seen
story
videos.
was
Yeah.
amazing, and we had that same thing actually here with someone who was coming to church who ended up in the hospital. A couple of them, and they wouldn't give them water. They wouldn't feed them, and I'm always thinking, what are these people thinking? These are doctors and nurses, and most nurses, up until this time that I have known, they've been people who are, they really tend to be compassionate. They like to care for people.
That's why they became
right,
yeah.
and which is why. So what has happened to these people?
The delusional spirit.
I don't have any better answer than that. That's
the only thing that makes sense to me. And this is not one or two. This is not a city or a few cities or a few states. It just seems to be so widespread.
right. Yes.
It boggles the mind. How did the entire department, well, not the entire, but a good chunk of the FBI go in and break into a man house with 7 kids who's pleading, I'll come out with my hands up. Please just don't come into my kids. And they come into the house with his kids.
You're right.
Guns
It's
drawn.
brown shirts.
Those are brown
That's the
shirts.
equivalent of. Yeah.
Those are brown shirts. They're designed to terrorize the citizens of the United States of America.
Yeah,
That's what's going on right now.
I don't know how this happens in America, but it's happening.
It's happening. It's happening, and we'll show you.
And it's the same thing. Just let me say this too.
Yep.
When we're talking to these school board members about this hideous affirmation we have, it's the law now, gender affirmation in Illinois in the schools. And what it does to kids, and talking about, I don't know if we mentioned this on air or not, but the Lurie's Hospital situation, those people they're from the Gender Development Clinic. They are the experts in gender identity and gender affirmation, right? They are referring trans kids to BDSM sites. That's bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. Now, if you think about this, because we are told that we must affirm trans kids in whatever gender or no gender at all that they declare, because they're potentially suicidal, right? Yet, these people are sending potentially suicidal kids to BDSM websites.
Makes perfect sense.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
And something has snapped.
It's evil. It's evil.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing double mastectomies on 15
Right.
years old,
And
15-year-olds.
castrating teenage boys. And we're talking to these school board members. These are like our neighbors about this stuff, and it's just
and so
nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm told? I'm told that the higher you get up, the more pressure comes from state officials, local officials. Again, here at New Hope, we've experienced that.
Yes, that's
when you step out of line, they start sending you nasty emails, nasty letters from lawyers.
Yeah.
You know, the way you have to combat it is take the letters and throw them in a garbage can.
Right.
right.
Yeah, they just try and intimidate people
of
into
course they
silence.
do.
I mean, we experienced that.
And we've experienced that on a small
lot.
scale.
On a small scale.
Right.
Scale.
Yes.
Small scale. I can only imagine, but it's enough to the point where, and I am so proud of New Hope. I'm proud of Abby and Vicki and people that come here who aren't afraid to stand up to it. That when the nasty letters come, so be it. We're not going to be silenced. But when we went through what we went through in 2020, Abby, Vicki, we were the only ones that were open in Palatine.
Right.
Everybody else caved. And a lot of the churches caved.
Yeah.
Caved. And a lot of churches now are caving. They're caving
Yes.
by way of silence.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that.
I tell you though, it's so clarifying. Everything is becoming so very clear.
The sides are very,
Yes.
very clear.
Yeah.
So that just
And Abby, when he
makes
says he's going
me-
to separate sheep from the goats, I remember I said this in 2020. No, I said this in 2019 when a lot of these quote unquote mega churches were quote unquote falling. And I said, I believe God is separating the sheep from the goats. I think judgment is coming now. And if churches cannot stand up, again, people, I think in the Christian church, there is a misunderstanding that as long as I keep my head down and don't sin, I'm okay with God.
Right.
Read Ezekiel 3. Read Ezekiel 33. Oh, watchman. Part of the greatest sin that the church has is keeping your mouth closed, of shutting up, of
Right.
going into silence. And we use this at New Hope all the time. Before you get to murderers, before you get to adulterers, before you get to liars, in that list of all who's going into the lake of fire, who leads the list going into the lake of fire? What's the first one? Cowards. Cowards. They come before murderers, liars, thieves, and adulterers. And so if people understood that,
Right. They'd be afraid to
they'd
be
be afraid
cowards.
to be afraid.
Right.
And I tell people, I'm afraid to be afraid.
I'm afraid to be afraid,
I'm
too.
afraid to be
Yes.
afraid. And you get it all over. Mark 8:38, Revelation. I'm afraid to be afraid.
That's actually, yeah, I like that. That itself was a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm
afraid to be afraid.
Yeah, I'm afraid to be
yes.
afraid because those people are going to the lake of fire. And so if you can be quiet as they sexualize and cut things off of children and hormone blockers
in your own school,
and you're afraid to tell your own
schools.
people in your church the truth of what's going on and warn them.
At the very least.
At the very least.
If you're a church leader.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But it is what it is. And now the FBI, they've been cowed into silence.
You know what? One more thing.
Go ahead.
I'm pretty chatty tonight. I don't know why.
That's good. Go ahead. Go.
I was just thinking today, and thinking about this very issue and how everything is becoming clearer and clearer and clearer, and it's so easy now to see the devil and his work in the world.
Oh yeah.
And I understand, and I was thinking about the pro-life guy, and I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, count it all joy.
Yep.
That if you are chosen to suffer for my sake, all of a sudden it's like, and it's, believe me, it's not like I'm, oh goody, I get to, but I'm like,
Abby, it's coming. Your video got a lot of views. It's coming, but go ahead.
but I understand. That makes a lot more sense now. Count it all joy when God wants, chooses. Or am I putting two verses together to suffer for Jesus' sake?
No,
because God's like, okay, that's my woman, that's my man, that's my daughter, that's my son, and it's a special. I hate to say privilege because believe me, I don't want to suffer, but I understand. It makes more sense now.
Yes.
To me.
Yes, and if you're suffering for Christ's sake, yes. But
and then just real quick on this, Mr. Houck. So tonight on Tucker, I was told via text that Peter Breen from the Thomas More Society was on, and that they have taken up his case.
Good.
And they're putting an entire team on it, and they're going to take it all the way. They're committed to it. So good for Thomas More Society.
Vicki, I don't think they're going to bring anything. They'll drop the charges because what they wanted to do has already been done.
People.
Yeah, exactly.
They know they don't have a case because the local, if you look at the story, from my understanding, the local authorities are dismissed it.
Right.
They are dismissed it. They have no case.
It was all for show.
It's all for show. What they wanted, the message they wanted to send was already sent. It was already sent. But then again, moving on, time flies when you're having fun. The president, once again, makes a remarkable statement at a recent rally. This video went viral. Here it is.
And so many of you know so much about this as well, and you're committed. And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this.
Vicki, where's Jackie?
Well, Jackie passed away in a car accident a couple months ago.
Jackie passed away in a car accident 3 months ago. The man, again, who loves the man? Where's his wife? Where's his kids? Where's his brother, his sister? Does anybody love Joe Biden? I did a video some time ago. Does anybody love Joe Biden?
Wow.
Take him off the stage.
Yeah.
Just take him off the stage. He's declining before our very eyes.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
It's really, really hard to watch.
It's hard to watch, but you know who I think is enjoying it? I think the Chinese government is enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right about that.
I think the people who put him in power and pulling the strings this is an open mockery against the citizens of the United States of America.
Yeah, I mean, he's hurting all of America.
He's hurting all of America.
So I don't feel sorry for him.
No,
I don't.
I don't feel sorry for him.
I'm sorry, I don't, because he's hurting America.
He's hurting America, the people around him. And here are the doofuses. The doofuses, the dunce, are those who are surrounding him who are supposed to love him. They're keeping him up there as the world laughs at him, as our enemies are emboldened. But before he fades off to the sunset, the Babylon Bee, not the Bee, actually puts out a highlight of the speech he had a few weeks ago. And so we're going to end on a light note, but a not so light note, because this is not the Bee. In essence, the not the Bee is saying, here's the essence of his speech a few weeks ago. Here we go.
And now, America must choose. to move forward or to move backwards.
Remaining systems will bow to the First Order!
To build a future or obsess about the past.
Blood alone moves the wheels of history!
To be a nation of hope and unity and optimism. Or a nation of fear, division, and a
raw, untamed power.
MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger.
Not! I think not!
They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. But together,
the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire!
Together we can choose a different path.
From this day forth, you put your faith in me.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence. Country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun.
So if you're familiar with the Bee, they actually put things together from a news standpoint. So the Babylon Bee is satire. Not the Bee is actual news. They actually put up Not the Bee and saying this is not satire. This is what he actually did. And so they play his speech with several known totalitarian tyrants, either in real life or in fiction. From Darth Vader to Darth Sidious.
To Nero.
To Nero. To Hitler, to all these guys. That speech, history will prove, I think, was very telling. Mm-hmm. And I hope I am wrong. But that speech, I think, was what they've made America into, a totalitarian state. Look, truth be told, what the FBI did, that's what happens in totalitarian states.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens. And what is the last thing? What is the last hallmark characteristics of a totalitarian state that we saw in Venezuela? The refusal to give up power. We're going to see what happens in November. They're behaving, I hate to say this, but they're behaving like a party who doesn't intend to give up power. If the Republicans win, and again, the polls, I was looking at Laura Ingraham last night, basically, as the closer you get to the elections, the more truthful the polls come out. They become foolish. 6 weeks out, the Republicans, quote unquote, has pulled ahead in several Senate races and in several House races. Pulled ahead, they were never behind. I don't think they were ever behind.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very interesting to see how this turns out. Georgia made some changes in their elections. Arizona made some changes in their elections. Herschel Walker now is opening up a larger and larger lead. I told you I had a pastor friend in Georgia who said there's no way Herschel loses in Georgia. I'm sorry. There's no way Herschel Walker loses the Senate seat in Georgia. Now he's up by 8 points or something.
Wow.
He's opening up a lead in one of the polls. Carrie Lake now is supposedly way ahead in the polls. The Senate.
She's awesome.
The Senate.
Is she's running for Senate?
No, she's the governor.
But
governor. The senator is opening up leads too. Again, she's at the top of the ticket. So she's going to have coattails, I believe, in Arizona.
I heard that Mitch McConnell pulled funding from the Senate race, from the Republican.
Arizona?
Yes.
You've got to be kidding me.
I had a good
Abby,
source.
come on now.
I heard it from a good source.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
He's evil.
Yes, he is.
He's evil.
I also heard he has a 7% approval rating, but doesn't seem
7?
to matter. That's what I heard.
like
yes,
7, not
yes.
707.
No, 7.
But he stays in power.
Yeah. He sure does.
Hopefully someone will challenge him. If we win, if the Republicans are going to win back the Senate, then maybe someone would challenge this man.
Gosh.
Someone would challenge this man. So, but think about this. The way they're acting now, for them to give over control of the House and the Senate to Republicans and to be subject to budget slashes and investigations.
Assuming that would happen.
Whether Republicans have said they're going to do it, you're right. If they don't do it, the trick is on you, Republicans. For you believe that the Republicans were different than the Democrats. And you're right. I am leaving it open to possibility. I think, Abbott, there's enough Republicans in there where you would have a revolt.
I think
the Rand Pauls, the Ted Cruzes, the Cottons, the guy up there in Wisconsin,
Ron Johnson,
the Kerry Lakes, the DeSantises, there would just be a brutal, brutal revolt. And maybe the war just would be within the Republican Party. But they would have to at least put on a show.
Which is my theory why they don't. My theory is that maybe they don't want to win.
I agree. No. That several people have said that, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we shall see.
Let's put a positive spin on this. I'll go first. Christ will come back and wipe out all his enemies. That's my
He's smiling. Nobody can see that, but he's smiling as he says it.
That's my positive spin on it. Christ is going to come back and wipe out all his enemies.
Amen. Well, Laura has some good news of the day. She says her mother turned 101 on this day and is most likely the last remaining living WASP, which is Women Air Force Service Pilot. She flew planes during World War II stateside to free up male pilots.
Congratulations.
Wow,
that's wonderful.
That's amazing.
You and your mother. Congratulations to your mother. Making it to 101. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Vicki, anything before we sign off?
No.
Vicki's done.
Sweet dreams, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Remember, God is still on the throne.
For such a time as this,